Good afternoon, Comrade General Secretary. It is an honor to welcome you to your new command center. I am Major Natasha Borisovna. By directive from Comrade Stalin, I have been assigned to your staff as an intelligence officer and your personal liaison. I am a graduate of the Moscow State Institute of International Relations, where I majored in counterintelligence operations and strategic studies, with a minor in foreign languages. My previous duty station was in East Berlin, where I successfully led an operation to expose and dismantle enemy espionage activities within the East German Democratic Republic. I am here to assist you in your struggle against the West, and to help you achieve victory in our sacred war against the Amerikansky. If you desire, I will convene the general staff in the war room, where they will brief you on our latest intelligence assessment. Just as our glorious nation defeated the fascists, we will also triumph over the decadent capitalists.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Solo Gamers Club. Tonight I'll be returning to 2 Minutes to Midnight, the Cold War, 1946 to 1991. In this playthrough, I'll be controlling the forces of the Soviet Union, while the West will be directed by the bot. I've created a table that I'll use to randomly determine the bot's configuration for this playthrough. We roll a d4, and the result is a 3, indicating that the West will be using the technology first priority for the bot. This will add technology 2 and 3 to the deck, along with the build weapons 2 card. So in addition to the standard 8 cards for the bot, which are indicated with an A in the upper right hand corner, we'll be adding the technology number 2, technology number 3, and build weapons number 2 solo cards to the solo bot. We'll shuffle those in, and that will direct the West. So our solo deck is shuffled, and our turn 1 and A cards are shuffled together. That creates our deck. The bot will be directed using the solo bot quick reference sheet. Since the US will be controlled by a bot, presidential abilities are not used. We ignore all of the benefits. However, we still roll to see if there will be presidential assassinations. Game is now set for Scenario 1, Soviet Steamroller, which begins in 1946. So with the preliminaries complete, I'll take my seat in my office at the Kremlin, and we'll get started. Alright, our card deck has been shuffled. I'm going to give that a cut, and then we're going to begin. And our first card is Authoritarian Unrest. So we've got some unrest in authoritarian governments. We'll make a roll on the card. This card is going to be cycled, and the Soviets will select first if there's an effect. Here's the roll. Roll is a 2, and that is no effect. So we're going to cycle that card, and we'll continue on with the next. Next card is Paperclip and Osavayakim. The code names for the US and Soviet collection of space-related technologies toward the end of the war. The Americans managed to recruit Wernher von Braun, architect of the V-2 rocket. All right, let's make a roll and see what the result is. We rolled a 4, and that says USA place 1 cube in gray or black, satellites or space technology, and then the card will be removed. We'll place the card on the discard pile, and the United States will gain 1 research cube in gray or black. Well, the US cannot place it in the space category of technology because that comes off of the satellite research. So they'll have no choice but to place that into satellite technology and in missile research. Missile research has a research value of 1, so we're going to exchange that cube for a fully researched US capability in missile research. Now with a US fully researched technology, we have to add a tech theft counter to the top secret tech theft box.
Camerate, it has come to our attention that the fastest rocket scientist Werner von Braun has been taken by the West. This action has significantly propelled the advancement of their rocket technology.
The game begins with 1 tech theft counter in the box. We'll be adding a second one. And as soon as 2 are in that box, we're going to remove both of those tokens. And then we're going to consult the Soviet tech theft placement table. We'll make a roll on the table, and if a choice is available, Soviets will choose. Roll is a 3. That means we can place a tech theft counter in either Japan, South Korea, or Saudi Arabia. Well, Japan is a democracy, so our spies would have a little bit more trouble operating there, so I think we are going to place that tech theft counter in South Korea. Counterintelligence operations, when conducted in a communist or authoritarian government, receive a +1 modifier. So it's best for us to put that into either South Korea or Saudi Arabia. I'm going to select South Korea. And our next draw is Stalin. Now, as the Soviet player, we enjoy Stalin and his cult of personality being in charge. He maintains his authority in the country, and as long as we can limit those freedoms and reforms, we won't have to worry about all those extra additions to unrest in the country. So we're going to make a roll on this table, and we're looking for a 3 or greater would be awesome. The result is a 1, and that means we have to roll for Stalin's death. Stalin dies on a roll of 4+ on turn 1. So we'll make the roll, and hopefully we roll less than a 4. We've rolled a 1, so Stalin will live to fight another day. If alive, we will cycle the card. So we will add that card into the cycled stack, and we're ready to continue. If Stalin would have died, we would have had to have rolled on the Soviet leadership table. And that has its pluses and minuses. If we get a reformer, or worse yet, a progressive eventually, many freedoms and reforms will be added in. We can gain hammers and sickle victory point tokens, but we also get massive amounts of unrest. And at the early part of the game, it's best if Stalin remains in control and his heavy hand keeps the hounds at bay, if you will. All right, here is our next card. And we have a Soviet money card. All right. Now with the current board configuration, I think I'm going to select option number 5. We're going to place a spy and then either make an influence roll or place an investment. So I think what we'll do is we're going to get a newly formed KGB. The NKVD has converted to KGB, and we're going to place a spy cell in the UK, and we're going to make an investment into the civil war in China. So we take a KGB marker from the force pool, and we're going to place that into the UK. That's going to serve as not only going after the tech theft counter, but also there is a card in the deck in turn 1 that will be dealing with the UK and whether we have spies there. So that is a good first step for us. I think the other option is the Soviet investment, and we're going to add that to China. We currently have one investment and we have influence in China. There's 2 Civil War markers, so we're going to add a second investment there, and that's going to help us when that Civil War comes to being resolved. Now, that Soviet money card is a red card, and that entitles us to two spy actions, either before or after we resolve the card. So we're going to be using those spy actions now at the end of the card, and we're going to attempt a tech theft using our KGB cell to steal that tech theft in the United States. Now, if we could have placed some unrest in the US, that would have given us a positive die roll modifier of 1. But I'm going to go for it now before the CIA can secure that tech. So we're going to be operating in the United States. That cell will be consumed for the moment. And since we're reacting in the space we're in, we get 2 dice for the roll. We're looking for a 6. And we've failed. All right, that is our first spy action. Our second spy action is going to occur in the UK, and we're going to attempt to seize that tech theft counter. So we will spend that KGB counter, and we're going to roll 2 dice, and we're looking for a 6. And we failed, unfortunately.
Camerate Kit. Our KGB assets in the United States and the United Kingdom have failed in securing the nuclear technology that we desperately require. If you wish, I will have those agents arrested and sent to Lubyanka.
So the Soviet money card is going to be cycled, and we'll move on to our next card. This one is Popular Unrest. We'll roll a die and see what happens. If there is a selection, Soviets will be selecting first. The result is a 6. That says both sides may place 1 unrest on any country, and then the card will be removed. We must select first. And I think for the Soviets, we are going to select the UK, and we'll place unrest in the UK. US is going to select Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria. And an unrest token is placed there. That puts the unrest level at 2, and 1 more, we would have a potential coup in that area. This is a blue card, so the US is entitled to spy actions. They have 1 spy deployed in the United States, so the CIA is going to commence an operation, and that's going to be a counterintelligence operation to weed out the Soviet KGB in the US. They're going to roll 2d6, and they're looking for 6s to be successful. Here is the roll. And they have failed. They've rolled a 3 and a 1. Popular Unrest card is removed from play. We'll place that in the discard pile. Here's our next card. And we've got War Reparations. All right, it says, post-war reparations were harshly applied by both Soviet and Allies alike. The Soviets developed a capability for shipping entire manufacturing centers back to the USSR. We're going to make a roll and see what happens. The result is a 2, and that says cycle. If it were turn 2, we would remove the card. So the card will be cycled for the moment, and we can undertake some Soviet spy actions, as that was a red card if we choose. And we're going to undertake a suppress unrest spy action. We can remove an unrest from a communist country for each successful roll. This represents infiltration and propaganda tactics, mass deportations, and arrests. So the SPY will be inverted, and we'll attempt to get rid of that unrest in the Soviet homeland. And we've rolled a 5 and a 6. That would have entitled us to get rid of 2 of them. Well, there's only 1 there, but we'll get rid of the 1 that is there, and the KGB has done their job. And the next card. Chinese Civil War. If China is in a civil war, roll a die. Otherwise, remove the card. Well, they are in a civil war, so we'll make the roll. The result is a 2, and that says no effect, cycle. If it were turned 2 or later, the card would be removed. So we are going to cycle that card. We don't have any available SPYs to activate, so we will continue on. We have popular unrest. Card will cycle, and the Soviets will select first. Here is the roll. Roll is a 1, and that says both sides must remove that much investment from the map due to corruption. All right, so each side will have to remove 1 investment. Well, the decision is easy for us. We only have 2 investments on the board, and both of them are in China. So the Soviets must remove 1 investment from China. The U.S. will remove investment from Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore. That card is cycled, and we'll continue on. And we have Tito. All right, we're going to have to make a roll. It says we need a 5+ if Stalin is the Soviet leader. Here's the roll. The result is a 4. So we have to go to the otherwise. It says Soviets expel Tito, set Yugoslavia to authoritarian rule, and add 1 unrest in the USSR, and then the card will be removed.
It has been reported that Comrade Stalin has removed Marshal Tito from power in Yugoslavia, further degrading the stability of the Balkans, and the news has caused some unrest in the Soviet homeland.
So Tito has been expelled. We have to set Yugoslavia to its authoritarian government, removing the communist disc, and then we have to add an unrest to the USSR. As Yugoslavia has changed from communists to authoritarian, Soviets will lose control of that factory and thus lose a victory progress. Soviet victory progress goes from 3 down to 2. So an unrest appears in the Soviet homeland. So the card is removed, and we'll place that in the discard. Our next draw is a Soviet money card. For that Soviet money card, we're going to select action 4. Place 3 investment if all are in worth 0 or 1 countries. So the Soviets will place investment into Yugoslavia and Albania, investment into Italy, and Soviet investment in Turkey. The card is cycled. Next card is Soviet famine. It is an open question about how much the famine was intentional as opposed to incompetence. Interestingly, Khrushchev was in charge of agriculture at this time. All right, we're going to make a roll on the table. The roll is a 6. And that says, place 2 unrest in the USSR or in Ukraine. Food confiscation. If the Ukraine is in civil war, which it is, instead of unrest, add 1 civil war marker and then remove the card. All right. Well, we're going to confiscate the food from the Ukrainians. That means we're going to add a Civil War marker into that area. That'll be number 2. That's the second one. And we have the Soviet Red Army deployed there. And we have time before that Civil War will have to be resolved. So in the meantime, we will eventually put some investment in there and help the Red Army in defeating the rebel forces in Ukraine and Belarus. Card is removed. And we'll draw our next card. And we have Nazi spies. All right, we're going to make a roll and see if we can acquire any former Nazi intelligence officers to work for us and for the Stasi. And here's the roll. The result is a 3. And that says, place 1 Soviet spy in East Germany or any country adjacent, and then remove the card.
Camerate Kit, the KGB has reported that it has recruited some former fascist intelligence officers. They will form the backbone of the Stasi, the East German secret police.
And since we've got problems in Ukraine and Belarus, that is adjacent to East Germany, we'll place our spy in Ukraine and Belarus. That will help to, when the time comes to resolve that civil war. Nazi spies card is removed from play. And we'll continue on. And we have McCarthy. All right. Senator McCarthy believes there are communists in the U.S. government, and we'll see if he's correct. Here's the roll. The result is a 1. That says, the president intervenes, remove any one presidential action, or instead implement 3-5, and then remove the card. If the U.S. was to implement 3-5, it would be to make a free counterintelligence role in the U.S. and then add 1 U.S. homeland unrest. Well, they could do that in an attempt to get rid of the KGB option that is in the U.S. And I guess we're going to make a dice roll. On a 1, 2, or 3, we'll say we'll do the 3-5 result. At a 4, 5, or 6, we would do the result instead, which presidential actions are not implemented in the solo bot portion of the game. Here's the roll. Roll is a 2. So we will be implementing result 3-5. So the U.S. is going to get a free counterintelligence role, and then they'll add in unrest in the U.S. homeland. So the U.S. gets 2d6, and they're looking for a 6. Even though their spy is spent, this is a free roll, and they're attempting to get rid of their KGB counterparts. Here's the roll. And they've done it. They've got 2 successes. That's going to send this KGB unit back to the force pool. And then 1 unrest is added to the U.S. homeland.
I have just received the reports from the KGB that our cell in the United States has been compromised and the operatives have been arrested.
And here's the next card draw. We have Atomic Energy Act. All right, we're going to make a roll on this table. And it says, if no Soviet spy in the U.S., we would, on a 4+ result, if a Soviet spy is in the U.K., on a 2 or greater, and that is the case. So here is the roll. The roll is a 2. We have a Soviet spy in the UK, so it says U.S. denies nuclear technology exchange to UK. Remove 1 U.S. influence in the UK. So U.S. influence is removed from the UK, and in turn, the U.S. is going to lose control of those 2 factories, dropping their victory progress by 2. U.S. victory progress drops from 3 down to 1. The card is removed. And we'll draw our next card. And we've got a U.S. money card. We'll be drawing a card from the solo bot to determine how that money will be spent. The The card is revealed to be build weapons. Build the best strategic weapon available. On a die roll of 6, build the bunker instead, then use a spy. All right, so we'll make a roll here and see if the U.S. can get a 6. That would dictate the building of a bunker. Roll is a 4. So in that case, we're going to select the best strategic weapon we have in the U.S. arsenal. So the U.S. is going to build one of their strategic bombers and add that to the strategic weapons box. So the U.S. deploys another strategic bomber, and that is going to move the nuclear balance up by 2. 2 for every bomber, 1 for every other weapon. And that is going to increase the U.S. nuclear balance by 2, moving it up to +4. Now what that's going to do is award the U.S. a victory point, and the Soviet homeland is going to gain 2 unrest. The United States gains a victory point token. They're leading 2-1 at the moment. And with the superiority of U.S. strategic bombers, Soviet homeland gains 2 unrest markers, moving them into homeland crisis. So, in the future, we're going to have to spend any Soviet money cards dealing with that unrest.
As you are adjutant, it is my duty to inform you that Comrade Stalin is very angry regarding our secret war against the West. I would advise you to rectify the situation as quickly as possible.
USA money card goes into the cycle deck. Solo card is placed in the discard. And now we will draw our next card. And we have the first of the Civil War cards. All right, the first Civil War card, we make a die roll. The result is a 3, and it says both sides may add 1 Civil War marker to any civil war. The Soviets will select first. The card will be cycled. Our Civil War track is now advanced to 1 card. Soviets have elected to place another Civil War marker in the Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia region. We're hoping to inflict casualties on the French army. And in the same regard, the U.S. is placing a Civil War marker in the Civil War in Ukraine and Belarus, making our lives much more difficult. Civil War card is cycled. Our next card is Berlin Blockade. That reads, Berlin is the testicles of the West. Every time I want the West to scream, I squeeze on Berlin. Nikita Khrushchev. All right, this is an optional card for us. USSR player may roll the die. And I think we are going to pass on the Berlin Blockade. So that card will be removed. All right, our next card is a USA money card. We'll draw a solo card and see how they'll spend it. The card is Influence. Roll a die. Okay. Roll is a 5. And it says implement the red portion of the card. Place 1 cube in a country with 1 investment and remove 1 investment. For the U.S., remove 1 unrest in the USA. All right. All right, the United States is going to select India. They will place a cube there, removing the investment, and they're going to take control of the factories in India. It's going to move them up on the victory progress marker. U.S. victory progress advances 1 for the Indian factories, and then another part of the card allows the U.S. to remove unrest in the country. And that puts the US at no unrest. Solo card is discarded. US money card is cycled. And we'll move on to the next card. And we've got a Soviet money card, thank goodness. Soviets are in homeland crisis, so I think we are going to select action 5. Place a spy and either make an influence roll or place an investment. So the Soviets are going to deploy spy to the homeland. And they're going to make an investment, and we're going to use that to suppress unrest. So we'll get rid of one of those. And now, since this is a red card, Soviets are going to attempt to suppress unrest. Soviets are going to spend that spy, and they'll roll 2 dice. And we're looking for 5s and 6s. And we've got 2 5s. That is outstanding. That is going to take care of the Soviet unrest, removing the homeland crisis. That's outstanding. Just what we needed. Soviet card is cycled, and we'll move on to our next card. And we've got a Soviet money. That is outstanding. Now we're freed from the shackles of our unrest in the homeland, so we can try to advance our positions in these civil wars. And we're going to select number 8, build a military unit or place an army in a civil war. So the Red Army is going to be deployed to the Chinese Civil War. We have influence, and it is currently a communist government. So the Red Army deploys to the Chinese Civil War. All right. As this is a red card, the Soviets are going to take a spy action. We're going to use our spy in Ukraine and Belarus, and we are going to suppress unrest in the adjoining country of Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria. We'll only get 1 die for this, and we're looking for 5 or 6. Here's the roll. The result is a 5. We are successful. We've removed the unrest from Romania, Hungary, and Bulgaria. Outstanding. Soviet money card is cycled. Next card is the Red Army. We're going to make a roll. Result is a 4, and that says the Soviet player may pay $2 to increase the conventional balance track by 1, or gain $1 place into the deck per space the track is decreased. If the army size is decreased, place a worker's marker in the USSR. After this, the Soviets can place a free army into a civil war or place 1 investment adjacent to the USSR if advantaged or better on the conventional balance track. The card will be cycled. Well, we're not going to decrease the size of our conventional balance, so we'll leave that alone. I have no free army to put into a civil war, but I can place an investment adjacent to the USSR if we're advantaged or better on the conventional balance track, and we are. And since there are 3 civil war markers in Ukraine and Belarus, I think I will place it there. All right. We have no available spy, so the card will be cycled. Here's our next draw. We've got Israeli independence. We're going to make a roll and see what happens. The result is a 1, and that says, in Israel, remove the occupied marker and add 2 civil war markers representing both Palestinian forces and Arab invasion forces. The Arabs, with British support, take the situation more seriously and commit large forces. All right, the card is going to be removed. So, the Arab-Israeli War of 1948 begins. And we're going to remove our occupied marker from Israel, and we're going to place 2 civil war markers there. All right. And that's going to give the Soviets an opportunity. Now, as a civil war is brewing in Israel, the U.S. is going to lose control of that factory. So we'll have to move their victory progress down by 1. U.S. victory progress goes down to 1. Card is removed from play. Next draw. We have research. Both players resolve 1 research action on turns 1 and 2. From turn 3, resolve 2 research actions each. The card will be cycled and the Soviets will select first. Soviets are going to select land and air. They'll place their cube in improved tech. It has a research value of 1, so we will replace that with a fully researched token. And that is going to award us +1 in conventional balance, and the Soviets will get an interceptor roll on a 5+, and that will allow us to neutralize one of the U.S. strategic bombers. That is great. Soviet conventional balance is increased to +3. That will award us a major aggression with a +2 DRM. Soviets will make their interceptor roll. We're looking for a 5 or better. And we've done it. We've neutralized one of the U.S. strategic bombers with our interceptor aircraft. The bomber is permanently removed from play, and the U.S. is going to have to lower their nuclear balance by 2. U.S. nuclear balance is lowered down to +2. U.S. is going to lose 1 victory point due to that shift in the balance of nuclear power. So we'll remove 1 U.S. victory point, and we have parity once again. It's outstanding.
Airpayload you Camerate General. You have managed to see our new interceptor aircraft to neutralize the enemy's advantage in strategic bombers. Well done, Camerate Kit.
U.S. is going to place its research into nuclear submarines. That requires the atom bomb, and it has a research value of 2. Research card is cycled. Next card is Navy Arms Race. If the U.S. has naval advantage, place 1 investment in any 0 or 1 worth country. Then the U.S. may place 1 naval tech cube on a die roll of 3+. If the die roll is 5 or greater, the U.S. may also place 1 cube in any tech. All right, the U.S. will make their roll. They rolled a 4, so they can place 1 naval tech cube on the technology board. And that is going to be into nuclear subs. It has a research value of 2. The 2 cubes are removed, and the U.S. now has nuclear sub technology. As that is a fully researched U.S. tech, we're going to add a tech theft counter to the tech theft box. That is the first one in there. U.S. is going to gain +1 to naval balance. +1 to naval balance is going to increase them to +2, and they're going to gain +1 assessment. Their intel assessment is at 2 now, so that will earn the U.S. a reroll token. Now the Soviets can roll, and on a 4 or greater, they can place 1 naval tech cube. Result is a 1. We've failed. Navy Arms Race card is cycled, and our next card is Indonesian Independence. We're going to make a roll and see what the Dutch are going to do in the Dutch East Indies. Result is a 2. It says the Dutch dig in and refuse to leave. So that civil war in Indonesia is continuing. The card is removed from play. We'll draw our next card. We have the Civil War. Now this is the second card, so we are going to have to resolve all of the civil wars on the board. Civil War markers advance to both cards, and we can resolve these in any order we wish. We'll begin with the Civil War in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Soviet Red Army is deployed, and that is going to give them a total of 3 dice. We're looking for 6s. And we have one success. Soviets would gain a +1 die roll modifier as well for the Army. So we have one success. Now the rebel forces will make their roll. Rebel forces will roll 2 dice. There's one Civil War marker in the nation. And they have no hits. So Soviets have a hit that is going to remove the Civil War marker from the board, and the Civil War in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania has been suppressed. As the government has won, the nation is aligned, if not already, which it is aligned. We're going to place an occupied marker in the country, and the Army is going to be withdrawn to the force pool. Soviets will gain +1 progress for winning the Civil War, and another point because an army was present. It gets them 4, so we reset that to 0, and we are going to award the Soviets a hammer and sickle token. And the Soviets take the lead 2-1. Next up is the Civil War in Ukraine and Belarus. Soviet Red Army is deployed. We have a spy and an investment. Soviets will be rolling 3 dice. They're going to gain 1 for the spy, 1 for the investment, and 1 for the army. They'll be adding 3 to the dice rolls. Here's the roll. Soviets have 2 hits. All right. Now the rebel forces will roll. They're going to roll 2 dice. They're going to gain +1 because there are 3 Civil War markers there. And they have 1 hit. So now, using the 2 hits we have, 2 Civil War markers are removed from play. Civil War is still active. The rebels have 1 hit, and that is going to cause an unrest in the Soviet homeland for the casualties. As the game says, the bodies come home. Soviet investment is spent. Those supplies have been consumed. And now the unrest in the Soviet Union will rise by 1. So we've managed to put a dent in that Ukrainian rebellion, but it is not stamped out as of yet. We'll move on to the Greek Civil War. The U.S. is going to be the government player for this Civil War. They have an investment there, so they'll be gaining +1 to the die roll. Here's the roll. U.S. has 1 hit. Soviet rebels will now make their roll. They have no hits. So the 1 hit is going to remove the Civil War marker from the country, and the U.S. has won the Greek Civil War. So Greece will be aligned to the U.S. The investment is spent. And an occupied marker is placed. So the U.S. will take control of those Greek factories. U.S. victory progress rises to 2. The next Civil War will be in Israel. U.S. is the government player. They have no modifiers. Here is the roll. They have 1 hit. Now the Arabs will roll. They have no modifiers. Arabs have no hits. So the U.S. hit is going to remove 1 Civil War marker, and that war is going to continue. Now we'll move on to the Indonesian Civil War. U.S. will be the government player, as that is an authoritarian government. U.S. will roll 2 dice, and they have +1 for the investment. And they have no hits. Russian-backed rebels will now roll. They have no DRMs. They have no hits. As neither team scored any hits, another Civil War marker is added to the conflict, adding the third U.S. investment has been spent. And that conflict will continue. Next up is the conflict in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. The French army has deployed. That is going to give the U.S. player, the government player, 3 dice and a +1 modifier to the roll. They have scored no hits. Rebels will now make their roll, and they're going to gain a +1 for 3 Civil War markers. They score 1 hit. All right. As the French army is deployed, war is not lost, but casualties will occur to the French army. And that's going to place unrest back in France. The bodies come home. And finally, we have the Chinese Civil War. The Red Army has deployed, and there is a Soviet investment. They'll be rolling 3 dice, and they'll be gaining +2 to the roll. 1 for the investment, 1 for the army. They have no hits. Chiang Kai-shek's forces now will roll. They have no modifiers. They have no hits. So, no hits were scored. The Civil War will continue, and another Civil War token is placed in the area. The Soviet investment has been consumed. That completes our Civil Wars. The card will be cycled. Here's the next draw, and we have a Soviet military export card. All right, there are no Western trade tokens in the Western trade box, so we're going to use this as a Soviet money card. Soviets will select action 6, and they're going to place 2 spies, and we want to try to steal some of this tech theft. I'm going to place 1 in the United States and another in the UK. We'll now take our spy actions. We're going to spend our Soviet spy in the US and attempt to steal the tech theft. We have 2 successes. That is awesome. We are going to steal that tech theft counter. Could have stolen another one if there were 2 there. So the Soviets will get 2 free research advancements in any research category that the US has already researched. And it's no surprise the Soviets are going to use that in nuclear technology. They'll place 2 in the atom bomb. Has a research value of 2. The cubes are replaced with a disk, and that's going to give the Soviets bombers, and they'll be able to make mad rolls, and they also gain a nuclear weapon. So we're going to add to the Soviet force pool Soviet strategic bombers, 4 of them, and deployable nuclear weapon. So the US's worst fears have come to fruition, and we've managed to steal the Manhattan Project technology.
Comrade General, under your leadership, the KGB has acquired the Manhattan Project technology, giving our glorious motherland the atomic bomb and parity with the Americans.
And we're going to attempt the same thing in the United Kingdom. We're going to spend that spy. Now we're going to gain +1 because there is unrest in the UK. So we'll be adding +1 to this roll to steal the tech. And unfortunately, we have failed 2 1s. I don't have any rerolls, so that will end that action. Soviet military export card is cycled. Here's our next draw. We have a U.S. money card. Draw a card from the solo deck, and they are going to use that for trade. And they'll roll a die. We'll see what the effects are. Result is a 6. And that says implement red. So the red portion of the card is implemented. In a country with a friendly government, remove a destruction marker, or place one investment and then remove a trade marker if there are investments equal to the trade counter's minus number. If the trade marker cannot be removed, add one extra investment instead. All right. In this case, the U.S. will remove the destruction marker from West Germany, gaining them 2 factories. U.S. has influence, and it is a democratic government, so the U.S. will gain +2 to their victory progress. U.S. victory progress moves from 2 to 4 for the West German factories. Solo card is discarded, and the U.S. money card is cycled. Here's our next draw. We have Italian communism. Both players will roll 1 die. Both players, USSR first, may add 1 to their roll for each investment removed in Italy. All right. Well, the Soviets do have an investment in Italy, so I think they will do that. They're going to remove the 1 investment they have, giving them a +1 to the roll. Each side will roll a die, and depending upon whose is higher, could affect the Soviets and getting them some influence. Here's the roll. Soviets have a 4 modified, US a 3. The card says if the Soviet roll is higher than the US roll, add 1 Soviet influence in Italy. All right, so Soviet influence will come into Italy, and that is going to neutralize the US influence there. That is outstanding. The Italian communism card is removed from play. Our next draw is spy agencies. Soviets perform 1 Soviet spy action with any spy, even an already used spy, and do not mark it used, or place 1 investment in a country with any Soviet spy. All right. So we'll use that free spy action in the UK and attempt to secure that tech theft. We're going to be gaining +1 for the unrest. And we have failed again. There is a problem with our KGB assets in the UK. I don't know what is happening. And the US portion of the card says, US roll a die on a 4+, place a US spy in any democratic country worth +2. Result is a 2. They have failed that. So the card will be cycled, and we will draw another card. And we have proxy war. All right, the Soviets are going to make a die roll. We get +1 if Stalin is alive for the first roll. So we'll be adding +1 to the roll. Result is a 1, and that is modified to a 2, and it says military intervention is not authorized. Card is removed from play. Draw our next card. We're getting down to the bottom. This is a U.S. money card. Draw a solo card, and the U.S. will spend that building weapons. Build the best strategic weapon available. On a die roll of 6, build the bunker instead. All right, here's the U.S. roll. They've rolled a 2, so they're going to build their best strategic weapon, and that is going to be a strategic bomber. So the U.S. will place a strategic bomber in the box, and they're going to gain +2 to the nuclear balance. U.S. nuclear balance is increased by 2. They're going to gain a victory point, and the Soviets will gain 2 unrest. U.S. will gain a victory point token, and that's going to equalize the playing field 2-2. U.S. build weapons card then says to then use a spy. Well, they have no available spies to use, so the build weapons card will be discarded, and the USA money card is cycled. And here is our final card for the turn 1, and that is a U.S. money card. We'll draw a solo card, and that is technology. Perform a research action and then use a spy. The U.S. is instructed to use balanced development with an emphasis on industry and maintaining naval advantage. All right. And I think the U.S. will place that in mainframe computer. We'll move through our end of turn phase. We advance the turn track to turn 2, 1951 to 1955. Normally we would have a roll for a new Soviet leader, but Stalin rules until he dies, so there will be no roll. Our victory point track is evened up, so we are back to 1 to 1. Soviets will now make rolls for their 5-year plan. Result is a 1. This time it's going to be in industry. We'll make a roll for a Western trade token. Stalin is alive. We get a -1 dice roll modifier. The result is a 3. That's modified to a 2, and the result is nothing. We'll make a roll for a new tech theft placement. Result is a 3. That's Japan, South Korea, or Saudi Arabia. This time I think we'll place it in Saudi Arabia. There's no change to Soviet leadership or reform cubes. Right now the game is tied, so there's no additions. All spies on the board will now refresh. Turn 2 cards are added to the cycle deck, and we'll reshuffle our solo deck. And that will complete turn 1. And we'll begin turn 2. Here's our first card. And we have Soviet money. Outstanding. Soviets are going to select option 7, and that's research technology. Soviets are going to select an improvement in naval technology, carriers, aircraft, bombers, and missile technology, and that has a research value of 1, so we are going to fully research that, and that'll move the naval balance 1 in favor of the Soviets. That'll move the naval balance to U.S. advantage. U.S. is going to lose their intel assessment and their reroll. Soviets will attempt to steal the tech theft counter in the UK. So we're going to spend one of the spies. We're going to gain +1 because there is unrest. Here's the roll. The result is a 6. We are successful, and we've stolen technology of the West. And I think the Soviets are going to continue with their naval research, and they're going to steal nuclear subtech. Has a value of 2. We've placed 2 cubes. We'll move up our completed research marker, which is going to raise the nuclear balance by 1. Naval balance moves to even, no effect. And the Soviet money card is cycled. Here's the next card. We have the Red Army. Make a roll on the table. Result is a 3, and that is no effect. It'll be cycled. Soviets can take 2 spy actions if they choose. We're going to activate our spy in the UK, and he is going to attempt to incite unrest. 2d6 roll, looking for 6. For every 6, we will add an unrest. We have 1 success. Another unrest is initiated in the UK. Place another unrest. It is outstanding. We have 1 spy action remaining. And I think we'll reserve that other spy action for the future. That'll end the turn. Here's our next draw. And we have the Stalin Note. The Soviets offer to demilitarize and unify Germany as a separate state. Resolve only if Stalin is alive. The U.S. player must choose to accept or refuse. Well, we'll let a bot decision determine what is going to happen. 1, 2, or 3 will be accept. 4, 5, or 6 will be refuse. Result is a 6. The U.S. refuses. Soviet +1 progress and remove 1 unrest anywhere. All right. Soviets gain +1 progress, and we can remove an unrest anywhere on the board. And I think we're going to remove unrest from the Soviet homeland. All right. Card is removed from play. Go on to our next action, and we have Chinese peace. If China is in civil war, Roll a die. Okay. Result is a 6. It says, the communist and nationalist Chinese come to peace. Set China to authoritarian. Set to one Soviet influence. Remove the Sino-Soviet split and Second Taiwan Strait crises from the turn 3 cards. All right. So per the errata, it says that on a 5 or 6 result, this card should end the Civil War. Remove all Civil War markers, remove armies, and place occupation if an army was present, and that is what will happen. So the Chinese Civil War has ended. We're going to place an authoritarian government in China. The army is removed back to the Soviet force pool, and we're going to place an occupation marker in China. All right. So from the turn 3 deck, we're going to remove Sino-Soviet split and Second Taiwan Strait crisis. Those will be removed along with the Chinese peace card. U.S. has spy actions available. U.S. will attempt a counterintelligence move in the U.S. And I made a mistake in the last game. The U.S. does not have to roll for spy actions. When the bot is controlling, it gets an automatic success. So the Soviet spies are kicked out of the U.S. and replaced back to the Soviet force pool. Our next card is Chinese Civil War. If China is in a civil war, roll a die, otherwise remove. So the card will be removed. Soviets would have a spy actions available to them. We will hold off on those. Next card, Soviet money. Outstanding. Soviets are going to choose action 8, and they're going to build a military unit. They're going to build one of their strategic bombers. We'll take that out of the force pool. Soviets place their strategic bomber in the strategic weapons box. Now we have the option of just placing the bomber in there or using it to permanently remove both the one they placed and a U.S. bomber. And I think the Soviets are going to permanently remove both of those. That is going to move the strategic weapons total to 2, and thus moving the U.S. nuclear balance down. U.S. nuclear balance drops 2 to +2, and the U.S. will lose a victory point token. U.S. victory point token is removed. Soviets are winning 1-0. Soviet money card is cycled. Next card, we have Technical Revolution. Roll a die. The result is a 1, and that says U.S. companies struggle to develop new technologies. Remove the card. All right. Card is removed from play. U.S. has spy actions available that they have no active spies they can use. We'll move on to the next card. And this is Abadan Crisis. All right, here is the roll. It reads at the bottom, a messy affair involving a declining empire's oil revenue and eventually an MI6 and CIA-sponsored overthrow of the Iranian government. Okay, here's the roll. Result is a 4. That says the Shah takes power. Resolve a coup in Iran. If the result is 4+, treat as a 4+, and then remove the card. All right, Iran. All right, examining Iran, we have a democratic government, no influence. So it says we are to roll 2d6 and resolve based on the highest roll. The player who stands to gain, the player without a government in the country, is intended to roll the dice. All right, the Soviets will roll, and highest roll will determine. And they've rolled 2 6s, so it's going to be a 6. Whoops. It'll be a 6. And we're supposed to read the 4+ if it's greater than 4+. It says strongman takes power or puppet installed. Remove an opposing influence, or if not present, place a friendly influence. So the Soviets will gain influence in Iran. And continuing on, it says replace the current government with an authoritarian government unless it is an occupied country. If it is occupied, the government is not altered. Iran is not occupied, so it will turn into an authoritarian government with Soviet influence. And then we're supposed to set the country to one unrest, leaving an occupied unrest if present. So we will leave that there, and we have a successful Soviet coup in Iran. It's outstanding. The Abadan crisis card is removed from play, and we'll continue on. And we've got research. Both players resolve one research action on turns 1 and 2, and then the card will be cycled. The Soviets will be selecting first. Soviet 5-year plan is in industry, so I think we're going to select that. Soviets will place their advance in computer research, and that is going to fully research computer research for them, giving them a disc, and that is in the industry category. That's going to fulfill their 5-year plan. So the Soviet 5-year plan is fulfilled, and that means we gain +1 to progress, and Soviet progress is now at 2. US is going to place it in mainframe computer. That's going to fully research mainframe computer for the US. And they're going to get an end of turn 1 cube. US places 1 end of turn in that box for computers, and then that is a fully researched tech, giving us another tech theft counter. Both of them are redrawn, and we're going to roll on the Soviet tech theft placement table. Roll is a 2, and that is none, so none will be deployed to the board. Research card is cycled, and our next draw is USA money. Solo card says they are going to use it for influence, and US will make a roll. Result is a 1, and that says do nothing and discard. All right, that is great. Influence card is discarded. US money card is cycled. US will not take any spy action, so we'll draw another card. And we have post-war treaties and rebuilding. Both players may remove a destruction marker in an aligned country, and USA must also remove an occupied marker from that country. Soviet may replace any or all reparations markers on the map with investments. If turn 3, remove, otherwise cycle. All right. I think the Soviets are going to remove a destruction marker in East Germany. They are aligned. They have the Soviet government. It's going to give them +1 on victory progress for the factory they just acquired. Soviet victory progress is at 3. US will select the destruction marker in Japan, giving them +2 to their victory progress. And we must remove an occupied marker from Japan. All right. Soviets will not remove any reparations markers at this time. US victory progress rises by 2 for the Japanese factories. That will set it back to 0, and the US is going to gain victory point token. So the US is back to parity, 1 to 1. And that card is cycled. It is not turn 3 yet. Here's the next card. We have war reparations. We're going to roll die, and we'll see if the Soviets can gain some war reparations. The result is a 6. Remove 0, 1, or 2 war reparations markers. Place an unrest there for each removed marker and add 1 reparations money to the deck for this turn only for each removed marker. Cycle, or if turn 2, remove. So the card will be removed. It's turn 2. Soviets can remove 0, 1, or 2 war reparations. Soviets will remove 1 reparations token from Austria, placing unrest. And I think they'll do another one in East Germany. We'll place an unrest in East Germany, and we'll remove one of the East German reparation tokens. We'll be adding in now 2 reparations cards into the deck. It's outstanding. So we are going to shuffle in 2 Soviet reparations cards into the deck. All right, the deck is shuffled. We'll give it a cut, and we're ready to continue. Here's our next card. And we have uranium found. An enormous and concentrated deposit is discovered. Add the uranium found event marker to the following country. All right, let's make the roll and find out. Result is a 2, and that's going to be in Sudan. So we'll place the uranium found marker in Sudan, and the card will be removed from play. So the uranium found token is placed in Sudan, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Tanzania, and that brings its value up to 2. All right, so if the U.S. can gain democracy there, they would gain 2 on their victory point track. Next card. Soviet money. Outstanding. Soviets will select option 8, and they're going to build a military unit, placing a bomber in the strategic weapons box, and I think they are going to eliminate both of them. And that's going to drop the nuclear balance to even.
Camerate General, with your oversight, we have managed to erase the capitalist's initial advantage in nuclear weapons technology. Well done, Camerate Kit.
Soviets are going to take a spy action in Ukraine and Belarus, and they're going to attempt to control the unrest in the neighboring East Germany. So we're only going to get 1 die for this. So we'll make the roll and see what happens. Result is a 4. That's a failure. Soviet money card is cycled. Next draw, a U.S. money card. And they are going to use it in change government. Roll a die. U.S. will roll a die. Result is a 1. Do nothing and discard. All right, we are getting lucky with those. That is outstanding. Card is cycled. Here's our next draw. Popular unrest. Roll a die. Let's see what happens. Result is a 6. Both sides may place 1 unrest in any country. Soviets will select first. Soviets are going to select Austria. That is the 3rd unrest token. That will be into a coup. Now the U.S. gets to place. U.S. will place unrest in Iran. That will go into a coup because it is authoritarian. We'll resolve the coup in Austria. And the coup in Austria, we have no influence. It says if there is no influence present, remove any government counter unless it is an occupied country, and set the country to 1 unrest. Roll 1 die and place 1 U.S. influence on a 1 or 1 Soviet influence on a 5 or 6. All right, well, unfortunately, this is an occupied country. So, if that's the case, the government will remain the same. We'll set the country to 1 unrest, which would be the occupied unrest. And now we're going to roll and see if the Soviets can gain some influence. 2d6. Nope, 1d6. A 1 or a 5 or 6. Result is a 1. And that means U.S. influence will be placed in Austria. That did not work out to our advantage at all. All right, now we'll resolve the coup in Iran. Well, there is influence in Iran, so we're going to roll 2d6. Highest die roll will determine what is going to happen. Here's the roll. Result is a 4, and that says strongman takes power or puppet installed. Remove an opposing influence, or if not present, place a friendly. So the opposing influence is removed. Then replace the current government with an authoritarian government, unless it is occupied. Okay, it will remain authoritarian, and then set the country to one unrest. All right, so that was a successful ouster of Soviet influence into Iran. All right. Popular unrest card will be cycled. Here's the next draw. And we've got Egyptian Revolution. I'm going to have to make a die roll. The roll is a 6, and that says Britain withdraws, but the new leaders are not as pro-American as the CIA initially believed. Remove occupation unrest and 1 U.S. influence in Egypt. That is great for the Soviets. The occupation marker is removed, and U.S. influence in Egypt is also removed. Outstanding. The Egyptian Revolution card is removed from play. Get our next draw, and we have Cuban Revolution. All right. Make a die roll and see what is happening with Fidel. The result is a 1. Castro, Che, and other influential revolutionaries are killed. Remove the card from play. Oh, no. All right, that was a missed opportunity for us in Cuba. Here is the next card. We have spy agencies. Soviets will select first. Perform 1 Soviet spy action with any spy, even with an already used spy, and do not mark it used. Or place 1 investment in a country with any Soviet spy. All right. Soviets will attempt to place unrest in the UK. 2d6, and we're looking for a 6. And we've got a success. Outstanding. Britain is becoming unraveled. Now they have a coup resistance of 4, so we're going to need to get 1 more in there in order to have the place go up topsy-turvy. All right. Now the U.S. is going to roll a die, and on a 4+, they are going to be able to place a U.S. spy in a democratic country worth 2+. Result is a 5, and that is a success. So they can place a spy in any democratic country worth 2+. And they're most certainly going to place that into the UK. All right. That card is cycled. Here's our next draw. We have Soviet oil. We're going to roll a die. +1 if the Soviet player holds an oil trade marker. We do not. So we'll see what happens. This is a chance to get our oil industry moving along, but at pretty good cost. Here's the roll. Result is a 4. It says increase Soviet oil production 1 box. If the Soviets pay $2 or an oil trade marker and $1, then we will cycle the card. If production is already at 2, we would remove it. Oh boy, that is a tough decision. I think the Soviets are going to do it. I'm going to authorize it. So we are going to have to pay $2. That means that we have 2 money owed tokens placed on our board. Whenever a Soviet money card comes out, it's discarded or placed into the cycle deck, and then we remove one of the money owed tokens. But we're able to increase our oil production 1 space, and we're at the 5+ now. All right, how this works is this. At the end of the turn, Soviets will roll a single die. On a 5 or 6, they would gain an oil production card that will be added into the deck. Then they would check the price of oil. If the value is greater than 1, they would add in 1 or 2 oil money cards into the deck. So for each Soviet oil production card, you could have price of 3. The Soviets would be getting a lot of income from that. So this is pretty good. So we're going to do this. That's how this would work, though, is the oil production is set with the oil production cards, and then the value of the oil, if it's greater than 1, would be adding additional oil money cards to the deck. So the Soviet oil card is cycled. Here's the next draw. We have Civil War. This will be the first card for the turn. Make a roll and see what happens. Result is a 2. It says USA may add 1 Civil War marker to any Civil War. All right. We'll move up our Civil War display to 1 card. Now the US will add a Civil War into an existing Civil War. And it's not much of a surprise the US will select Ukraine and Belarus. That card is cycled. Next draw. US money. Draw the solo card, and they're going to do trade. They'll make a roll on the table. Here is the roll. Result is a 6, and that says implement the red. In a country with a friendly government, remove a destruction marker, or place 1 investment and then remove a trade marker if there are enough investment equal to the trade counter's minus number. If the trade marker cannot be removed, add 1 extra investment instead. All right. US has no more destruction markers that it wishes to remove, so it's going to take the option to place an investment, and they're going to do that into West Germany. And then it says, if the trade marker cannot be removed, add 1 extra investment instead. So the US will be placing a total of 2 in West Germany and the lowlands. So card is placed in the discard. The US money card is cycled. Next card is authoritarian unrest. We're going to have to make a die roll, and we will see what is happening. Result is a 2. That is no effect. Card will be cycled. All right, I've placed these Soviet money owed tokens next to the deck so I don't forget about those. It might be a good tip for the viewers. If you have any money owed tokens, place them wherever your deck is, and then you can't forget about them. I put them on the Soviet Union's display, and I might not see them, so this will make it a little easier. We'll go on to our next draw. And we've got India, Pakistan. All right, we're going to make a roll. Result is a 4. It says the U.S. collaborates with Pakistan, seeking a willing ally. U.S. must place 1 influence in Pakistan and switch the country to authoritarian. Also place 1 investment adjacent to Pakistan. The USSR places 1 influence in India. All right. So Pakistan gains U.S. influence, and it is converted to authoritarian. All right. And then it says we also place 1 investment adjacent to Pakistan. So the U.S., I think, will place that in, it would either be Iran, India, or Afghanistan. I think we'll place that in India. Then it says the USSR places 1 influence in India. So the USSR places influence in India. That is going to wipe out the U.S. influence, and that is going to reduce the U.S. victory progress by 1 because they no longer possess that factory. So the U.S. will lose an influence. That means it's going to go down to 5, and it's going to have to surrender 1 of its victory tokens. Soviets now lead 1-0. The India-Pakistan card is removed from play. Here's our next card. And we've got U.S. Guatemala coup. And we're going to roll a die. All right, here is the roll. Result is a 6. It says the United Fruit Company persuades CIA to overthrow the democratic government of Guatemala. In Guatemala, add 1 Soviet influence and 1 unrest. Okay. So we're going to add an influence, Soviet influence in Guatemala, and 1 unrest. Since that is a blue card, the U.S. is going to take a spy action, and they're going to use counterintelligence, and that will automatically remove a Soviet spy from the U.K. And it'll go back to their force pool. All right. U.S. Guatemala coup card is removed from play. Here's our next card. And we've got non-aligned movement. Okay, we're going to make a roll. Let's see what happens. Result is a 2, and that says each player may remove one investment in any of India, Yugoslavia, Indonesia, or Egypt. And then the card will be removed. It says several countries declared themselves neutral in the Cold War and decided to make it public. They would not take sides. All right, the Soviets are going to remove a U.S. investment from India. The United States will remove a Soviet investment from Yugoslavia and Albania. The non-aligned movement card is removed from play. Here's our next card, and we've got the Second Civil War card. All right. Our Civil War tracker is moved to both cards, and we'll start resolving the civil wars. All right, we're going to start with the civil war in Belarus and Ukraine. Soviet Red Army has deployed, and we have a Soviet spy cell in the region. Soviets will be rolling 3 dice, and they'll be adding +2. 1 for the army, 1 for the spy. Here's the roll. And the Soviets have 1 hit, modified 6. All right, now the rebels are going to roll. They get 2 dice, but they have no modifiers. So here is their roll. And they have no hits. So Soviets are going to be able to remove 1 Civil War token. But the war is continuing. I'm having problems attempting to deal with that. We need to put more resources in that area. The next civil war is in Israel. The U.S. will be the government player. They're going to roll 2 dice, no modifiers. They have 1 hit. Arabs will now roll their dice. They have 1 hit. But what's going to happen is the U.S., their success will remove the Civil War token before that die gets to be included. So that means that the U.S. and Israel have won the Arab-Israeli War. So the government will be aligned, if not already, with the parent country, which is the U.S. We're going to place an occupied marker there, and then we're going to set the country to 1 unrest. So we'll get an occupied marker out in Israel, and we set it to 1 unrest, which will be the occupied marker. Our next civil war is in Indonesia. Government is authoritarian, so the U.S. player will be the government player. Gets 2 dice, but no modifiers. He has no hits. Now the Soviet-backed rebels will roll. They have 2 dice. They're going to gain +1 for the 3 Civil War markers. Soviets have a success. As the government player did not score a hit, rebels are going to win the Civil War in Indonesia. All of the tokens will be removed. First step in the rebel win is to flip the influence to the rebel player. So if none are present, it says place 1 rebel influence. So the Soviets have influence in Indonesia. Remove the government of the previous owner's color if present. It is not. It'll stay authoritarian. Place an occupied marker if 1 or more rebel armies are present, and then remove the armies, or remove any occupation marker if 3 did not apply. Set the country to 1 unrest. So we're going to have unrest there, but we have Soviet influence in Indonesia. Our last civil war is the one in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. Once again, the U.S. player is going to be the government player. The French army is deployed, and they're fighting against the Viet Minh. France will be rolling 3 dice, and they're going to get a +1 modifier to the roll. Result is 2 hits. They did pretty good. That was a 5, modified to a 6. Okay, the rebel player will now roll. You get 2 dice plus 1 for the 3rd Civil War marker. They have 1 hit. So, the government player has 2 hits. They're going to remove 2 Civil War markers, leaving 1 there. The rebels have inflicted a casualty, and that is going to bring unrest back up in France. Bodies come home. The French are getting tired of that war in French Indochina. They're 1 away from a coup. Now, France has the option of withdrawing the French army from French Indochina. That would reduce the amount of unrest by 1. But I think for right now, we're going to leave the French there and they'll let them fight it out. And that's going to complete the Civil War card. That will get cycled. Here's our next card. And we've got Stalin. Okay, we're going to make a roll and see what happens. All right, here is the roll. Result is a 1. We have to roll for Stalin's death. Now this is turn 2. So for turn 2, a 3 or greater, and Stalin will die. Here is the roll. The roll is a 3. And Stalin has died. If dead, add 2 de-Stalinization cards to the cycle deck and roll for a leader, adding +1. If it is turn 1 or 3, place the no leader on turn track and remove the card. Oh.
Comrade General, I have terrible news. Our glorious leader, Premier Stalin has passed away. Comrade Khrushchev has assumed the role of General Secretary.
So our glorious leader, Joseph Stalin, has died. We are going to be adding 2 de-Stalinization cards to the cycle deck. And then we're going to have to make a roll for Soviet leadership, and we'll see who takes over for Stalin. Now this roll is going to be modified by a +1. Here is the roll. The result is a 6. That's modified to a 7. So, in this case, the progressive, thank goodness, is not available at this time. So a roll of a 6 would be considered to be a reformer. So a reformer is in office now. So the reform value of the current leader, which is 2, is going to be placing 2 cubes in the Freedoms and Reforms box, and 2 is going to advance that. We have ways of stopping that with our spies, but I don't know if we're going to get the opportunities. We've got the money owed there, 2 money owed tokens. So that is what we have right now in the Soviet Union. We have a reformer in office. All right, our next card, we have Soviet military export. Okay, there is nothing in the Western trade box, so we're going to use this as a normal Soviet money card. And in this case, that card is going to be used to pay for one of our money owed tokens. So that token will be put back into the supply, and the card will be cycled. Next card is Navy arms race. If the U.S. has naval advantage, they do not place 1 investment in any 0 or 1 worth country. Right now, the naval balance is even. Then the USA may place 1 naval tech cube on a die roll of 3+. Okay, we'll make the roll. Okay, here's the roll. Result is a 2. They don't get it. Then the Soviet player may place 1 naval tech cube on a die roll of 4 or greater. Okay, here's the Soviet roll. Roll is a 1. So nobody gained from that. Card will be cycled. Here's the next card. We have Austrian neutrality. Make a die roll. Result is a 5. It says remove the Austrian reparations marker from the map if it is still there. It is not. Add 1 U.S. influence in Austria and remove any occupied marker. Add 1 Soviet money to the deck for reparations. That is great. So U.S. influence is removed from Austria. And then it says, and remove any occupied marker. So the occupied marker is gone now. And we add a Soviet money to the deck, reparations. So the Soviets are going to gain a reparations card into the deck, and we'll shuffle that in. The Austrian neutrality card is discarded. All right, we've shuffled that in. I'm going to give the deck a cut, and we will continue. Here's our next card. We've got the reparations card. All right, that is going to pay for our last Soviet money owed token. So we're back on a paying basis again. The card is removed from play. And we'll continue on with our next card. And we've got a USA money card. Draw a solo card, and that is going to be used for aggression. If a civil war is in effect, place an army in any that does not have one already. If all armies are not eligible to be placed, place 2 investment in Civil War countries. Or if an aggression is available, pick a target country and resolve. If not, or if MAD is 3+, research land air technology. Okay. Well, the U.S. is going to have to use the second option, placing 2 investment in Civil War countries. We don't have any aggressions available, and we cannot place any armies into civil wars that don't have one already. So I think we're going to place some investment in Vietnam. U.S. places 2 investment in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. U.S. money card is cycled, and the solo card is placed in the discard. Here's our next card. And we've got Soviet money. All right, we are back on a paying basis again. Let's see what we're going to do with this. And I think the Soviets are going to take option 8, build a military unit, and they're going to deploy one of their bombers. Soviets deploy a strategic bomber into the box, and that is going to move the nuclear balance in the favor of the Soviets by 2, causing unrest in the U.S. homeland. Unrest level rises by 1 in the U.S. homeland. Soviet money card is cycled. Here's our next card. And we've got reparations. Outstanding. I think the Soviets are going to choose action 4, place 3 investment if all are in 0 or 1 worth countries. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to place 1 investment in East Germany. We have a little bit of a occupation and unrest marker there. That'll help a bit. I'm going to place an investment in China. And an investment in Nicaragua, Guatemala, and Honduras. Reparations card is removed. Here's our next card. And we've got UK nuclear bomb. It's turn 2. We're going to roll a die. And result would be a 4+ is what they're looking for. Apply +2 to the roll if the nuclear tech marker is in the UK. All right, so we'll see if they're successful. On turn 2, it's a 4+. They rolled a 6. They're successful. UK develops nuclear weapons. +1 nuclear balance, USA. Place the UK nukes marker in the strategic weapons box and place the UK nuclear weapon marker in the UK. And remove the card. All right. So we place the +1 nuclear weapon marker in the strategic weapons box, and that's going to reduce the Soviet advantage by 1. And we place a UK nuclear weapon in the UK. All right. UK nuclear bomb is removed from play. Next card is a US money card. Here's the solo bot card, and that's build weapons. Build the best strategic weapon available. On a die roll of 6, build a bunker instead. Here's the US roll. It's a 1, so they're going to build a strategic bomber. US places a strategic bomber in the strategic weapons box, and I think they're going to use that to eliminate both markers. Soviets are down to only one available bomber. The US has 4. And that is the disparity at hand. So right now we have a +1 nuclear balance for the US, moving them up to +1. Card says to use, then use a spy. They have none available. So that card will be placed in the discard. USA money card is cycled. Here's our next card. We've got a reparations card for the Soviets. And the decision-making process on this is extremely hard. We have some tough decisions to make with this. I would like to put it into technology, attempting to get our ICBMs, which we have a superiority in over the US, potentially. But we need to have spies available in the USSR to, if we don't want to have those freedoms and reforms track be moving up. So this is really a tough one. And I think the Soviets are going to place 2 spies. We're going to put one into the homeland and another one into East Germany. And then we can take a spy action if we choose. And I think we're going to attempt to use that spy we placed in East Germany to suppress unrest. So the Soviets will spend that spy, and then they're going to attempt to suppress the unrest. 2 dice, and we're looking for a 6. Now the Soviets have investment there, so we don't get any benefit for that. All right, 5 or 6. We have 1 success, so we can remove the unrest in East Germany, Poland, and Czechoslovakia. That's good. Soviet reparations card is removed. Go on to our next card. And we've got Libyan independence. We're going to be making a roll and finding out what happens with that. Here's the roll. Result is a 5. It says Britain withdraws and the king takes power. Remove occupation unrest and remove the card. All right. So the occupation unrest is removed from Libya. And the card is removed. Our next card, Soviet money card. All right. And I think the Soviets are going to select space launch vehicle. Place 1 there. Soviet money card is cycled. Next card is a USA money card. Solo card says they are going to use it for technology, perform a research action, and then use a spy. US will use balanced development with emphasis in industry and maintaining naval advantage. Okay. US research action I think will be used in the Navy category, and they'll place 1 in improved tech. Solo card is discarded. US money card is cycled. And this is our last card, and we have Algerian unrest. Okay, we're going to be making a roll on that table. Result is a 5. It says unrest in Algeria triggers insurrection. Remove the occupied marker and place 2 Civil War markers, the French army, and a Soviet investment representing Egyptian support, and remove the card. Okay. So the occupied marker is removed from Algeria and Morocco. 2 Civil War markers will come on to the theater. And a Soviet investment will also be brought in. And the French army will be redeployed from Southeast Asia to Algeria. And that is going to bring the turn to a close. Turn marker moves to turn 3, 1956 to 1960. We have to even up our victory point tokens. So the US is going to gain 1, and the Soviets will also gain 1. You always have to have 1 there if possible. We have to roll for the new Soviet 5-year plan. Result is a 3, and that's going to be industry again. Soviets will roll for Western trade. There's no modifier this time. Stalin is dead. Result is a 1, and that's nothing. And we'll roll for another tech theft. Result is a 4. That's Canada, UK, or West Germany. Soviets will place it in West Germany. Now we have to add reform cubes. Our current Soviet premier is a reformer. He's going to be adding 2 cubes. And that is enough for it to advance. We can try to stop it with Soviet spies, though, if we choose to. I think we'll let it go through. That's going to move the freedoms and reforms up to the 1st level. And we get to cycle in the Soviet diplomacy card and -1 unrest. So a Soviet unrest is taken out of the homeland, and we're going to gain the Soviet diplomacy card. So the Soviet diplomacy card will be put into the deck. And we have to roll for presidential assassination. Double 1, 2, or 3, and the president is assassinated. And it's a 5 and a 6, so no problems there. U.S. debt is now going to move. It should have moved last time. I forgot to do that, so it should be there. It's going to move to 70% of GDP, and that is going to remove a Soviet victory point. Soviet victory point is removed. We're back at parity. Now all spies are going to be reinverted. And then unrest is going to be added for each nuclear weapon within 2 of the homeland if you do not have the SLBM technology, and that is the case. The UK is now nuclear, and 2 spaces to the USSR, so there's going to be unrest in the Soviet homeland. Place an unrest marker in the Soviet homeland. The US has 1 cube at the end of turn for their mainframe computers, and I think they're going to place that into the naval balance track. That is going to give them a fully developed research in naval. +1 to naval balance. Puts the US back to +1 advantage, and a tech theft counter will be placed in the tech theft box. Soviets will roll for Soviet oil production. If you can get a 5 or 6, we'll be adding an oil production card into the deck. They rolled a 4, unfortunately, so no help there. The turn 3 cards are added to the cycle deck, and we shuffle that and the solo deck, and we're ready for the next turn.